I really want to start, Michael, with some of the core theories, which just things are endogenous within a system, and then there are exogenous things. And this truly has been the mother of all exogenous shocks, hasn't it? How does our global system adapt to the size of this exogenous shock?
Well, I mean, there are several dimensions to that, Tom. So, I mean, one very important one we've observed, which is aggressive responses by central banks and governments through fiscal programs. Your earlier guest described in some detail the programs that are apparently going to be needed in the UK, which is facing a kind of serious outbreak. And that, of course, has consequences. It builds up sovereign debt at remarkably rapid rates that we probably thought we'd never see. But that's part of the story. And it does, buffer the shock for households and businesses and so on. As the Chancellor of the Exchequer in England said, in the UK said, it doesn't perfectly buffer it. So that this was the mother of all exogenous shocks, and businesses, households, economies, and governments and policies are all doing responding.
Michael Spence, if I trot out a logarithmic chart to impress the mathematician from Oxford, I'm not going to impress Michael Spence, folks, but if I was, I would note that the vectors on Asia economies for deaths are remarkably better than for the Western economies. Is all this is about is we refuse to have the discipline of the Asian societies in fighting this natural disaster?
There's an element of that, Tom. I mean, I think you can say about the Asian societies, which I think have demonstrably managed the coevolution of the virus and the economy somewhat better, on average, than we have in the West. They had prior experience, and they had built-in systems of the type that Bill Gates and others have described, so they actually weren't inventing it on the fly, tracing and testing. Second, some of them made better use of digital technology to support that effort. Third, culturally, and because of past experience, I think they probably had a higher level of compliance with the recommendations that the WHO has made that you just heard a few moments ago. And so on average, I think, yes, for understandable reasons, they've kind of outperformed in this particular huge shock.
Michael Spence, are Western governments supporting the economy in the right way? I don't know whether more emphasis needs to be put on green technology or actually green projects if they want state support, even if it's because of COVID, or whether we're doing too much or too little.
No, the thing that seems to me to occasionally get partially lost, Francine, is less on the question of whether they're doing too much or too little on the economic side. It's that there's at least pockets of lack of appreciation of the importance of getting the virus under some kind of control in order to accelerate recoveries and to achieve a full recovery. And my take on what's been going on is that while there's variance across countries, some sectors recover relatively quickly when restrictions are lifted, and other ones really struggle. The hospitality sector, international air travel, and so on. And that was going to be a story of divergence anyway, right? So I think the failures or the lack of focus, if you like, has been more on really working hard on appropriate steps to get the virus under control. I'm not suggesting you can eliminate it. I think your guest from Oxford and the WHO was absolutely right. We're going to have to learn to live with this, but we don't have to live with it by ignoring it. And so that seems to me to be kind of an important differentiating factor.
But so if you assume, Michael Spence, that actually, the virus stays with us for the next 3 to 4 years, and despite a vaccine, we'll have to learn to, live differently, then does it still make sense to give support to activities in, the leisure or the restaurants that may never really fully recover?
I think it does. I mean, we don't want to sort of prejudge. I mean, it's a good question. Do you want to support restaurants that ultimately are going to have to go out of business? I mean, it's quite interesting, especially for you with an Italian background here in Milan. Most of the restaurants seem to have moved outdoors. And so, we're in unknown territory here. And I'm not suggesting at all that the fiscal programs can be very precisely targeted. But I think, at the level of protecting families, of helping them make transitions, of supporting small businesses, at least for a period of time, it still makes good sense.